Good afternoon. Let's keep studying about the examples that the pronoun that is applied is the related pronoun. The second example that the pronoun that is applied is is this. I put some grains that come from a basket. The speaker indicates the object of the transitive verb put with the precedent some grains of the main clause and the subordinate clause that come from a basket. To describe the precedent, some grains with the action indicated by the definition of the intransitive verb come. As the speaker only applies the pronoun that in the defining way without any comma, the speaker can understand, the listeners can understand that the precedent that indicates the same object as the pronoun that is this, some grace, which is stated right ahead of the pronoun that. The pronoun that plus the pronoun that indicates is able to indicate the subject or object that are a person, that are people or not people. The pronoun that can indicate any object or subject. The pronoun that to indicate the same object. This is obviously different from the application of the pronoun who and which. The pronouns who and which. The pronoun who is to indicate the same person as the precedent in the main clause. The speaker only indicates the subject or object that is not a person by the pronoun which. It's a kind of specialization by indicating a person or a thing. Between the pronoun who and which. The pronoun that indicate the same object as the precedent some grains indicate the same subject of the intransitive verb come in the subordinate clause. The third example that the pronoun that is applied as the related pronoun is this. The house becomes a famous place that has some grains of rice. In this sentence, we find that a famous place, the phrase of the general noun, a famous place is the precedent in the main clause because this phrase is stated right ahead of the pronoun that. And the pronoun that is only applied in the defining way. And the pronoun that is able to indicate the precedent that is not a person or that is a person. So this is the proper application of the pronoun that. The speaker indicates the subjective complement to define the subject of famous place and the subordinate clause that has some grains of rice to describe the precedent of famous place with the condition indicated by the definition of the transitive verb has. The pronoun that indicates the same subject as the precedent of famous place to indicate the subject of the transitive verb has in the subordinate clause. From now on, we will study about the determiner whose. The determiner whose links the subordinate clause as a description for the precedent in the main clause. It's in the way that the determiner sets a boundary of the subject or object because the determiner the speaker applies the determiner to set a boundary for clarifying the speaker's intention to the listeners in the conversation. The determiner whose to link the subordinate clause to the main clause works in the same way. Okay, let's read the explanation. The speaker indicates the same subject or object that the precedent indicates in the main clause with the precedent whose in the subordinate clause. The determiner whose to indicate the same subject or object as the precedent consists of the phrase of an indication with the indication in the subordinate clause. We admit that the origin of the determiner whose is in the possessive determiner, and the speaker intends to link the subordinate clause to the main clause when the speaker tries to explain about the possession of the precedent. The speaker can give us the detailed information about what or who the precedent has in the subordinate clause. This is how the precedent whose as the possessive determiner sets the boundary of the precedent. The indication indicates the subject or object that belongs to the subject or object that the precedent indicates. It's like this sentence. I see a man whose son is smart. This subordinate clause, whose son is smart, is about the son of the man in the main clause. The speaker could state two clauses like this. I see a man, his son is smart. We find that the possessive determiner his in the second clause is replaced by the determiner whose, and the speaker sets the precedent as the shared indication in both clauses as the man. The man is the precedent in the main clause, and the speaker links the two clauses by revealing who the precedent has, who belongs to the precedent in the main clause. There are two examples that the determiner whose is applied. Sorry, there is one more. There are three examples that the determiner whose is applied. Let's study how the determiner whose is applied in the sentences one by one. The first one is this. I see a chocolate whose specialty is cat knife. This example reminds me of the two students who gave me the chocolate from Dubai. In the first example that the determiner whose is applied in the defining way. The determiner whose is able to be applied in the defining way or in the non-defining way. In this sentence, the speaker didn't use the comma to reveal that this determiner whose is applied is in the non-defining way. So we find that the precedent of this sentence is the phrase of the general noun, a chocolate. A chocolate is indicated by the determiner whose, and the speaker states the subordinate clause by specifying the subject, the specialty that belongs to the precedent, a chocolate that is not a person. It's okay because the chocolate is the object of the speaker, who is a person. We've studied the fact that an object that is not a person only belongs to a subject who is a person. But, there is some error. I'm sorry. An object that is not a person can belong to a subject that is not a person when this object belongs to the other person. So we find this relationship as the indirect belonging. Specialty is not a person. A chocolate is not a person, but this chocolate receives the definition of the transitive verb C, and in the interaction with the speaker, who is a person. So we find that the application of the determiner whose is compliant with how we use the possessive determiner in a clause. And let's look into the subordinate clause, whose specialty is Kadaif. The speaker describes the specialty that belongs to the object, a chocolate. And this specialty is the subject of the subordinate clause. And let's go to the second example. I salute Jesus Christ, whose class I take. In this sentence, we find that the president of the determiner whose is Jesus Christ, our Lord, and the speaker intends to describe the class owned by Jesus Christ in the subordinate clause. So we find that Jesus Christ and the determiner whose indicates the same person. And we find that whose class, that is the phrase of the general noun class, is the object of the transitive verb take in the subordinate clause. And let's go to the third example. Jesus Christ is the one whose voice the righteous motivation is. Let's find the president as the one indicated by the determiner whose, and the speaker intends to state about the voice of the one. And let's look into the subordinate clause. The subject of this subordinate clause is the righteous motivation, and be verb is describes the subject, and the subjective complement is indicated by the phrase of the general noun whose voice. Okay, let's study one by one in the next class. Thank you for watching.